My girlfriend texted, "I found someone else. I want nothing more to do with you." I replied, "As you wish." Then I blocked her cards and stopped funding her lifestyle. 24 hours later, her attorney was frantically reaching out to me. I, 32M, thought I knew what betrayal felt like until that Tuesday morning when my phone buzzed with a message that would change everything. 3 years of what I believed was love, commitment, and building a future together evaporated in a single text from my girlfriend. She told me she had found someone else and wanted nothing more to do with me. No explanation, no conversation, just a cold, clinical dismissal of everything we had built together. I stared at those words for what felt like hours, my coffee growing cold as the reality sank in. My first instinct was to call her, to demand answers, to fight for what we had. But something stopped me. Maybe it was pride, or maybe it was the clarity that comes with complete devastation. Instead, I typed back 2 simple words that would set everything in motion. I told her, as she wished. Then I did something that 3 years of supporting her lifestyle had prepared me for, though I never imagined I would need to use it. I opened my banking app and began systematically cutting off every financial lifeline I had extended to her over the years. The credit cards I had added her as an authorized user on, blocked within minutes. The monthly transfers to her account that covered her rent in the upscale downtown apartment she insisted she needed for her image, canceled immediately. The car payment for the luxury vehicle she claimed was essential for her marketing job stopped before the next business day. 3 years of financial entanglement dissolved with a few taps on my phone screen. I had been methodical about keeping records, something my accountant father had drilled into me from childhood. Every transaction, every payment, every financial decision was documented and legally mine to revoke. The apartment lease was in her name, but I had been paying the rent through automatic transfers. The car loan was hers, but my payments had kept it current for 2 years. The credit cards carried her name, but my credit score and income had secured them. I had built her entire lifestyle on my financial foundation, and now I was pulling that foundation away brick by brick. By evening, I had completed what I privately called my financial extraction. Every connection between my money and her lifestyle was severed. I felt strangely calm, like someone who had just performed necessary surgery on himself. There was pain, but also relief that the diseased relationship was finally being removed completely. I spent that night organizing 3 years' worth of financial records, text message screenshots, and documentation. My methodical nature, which she had often mocked as boring, was now serving me well. I had proof of every payment, every gift, every financial contribution I had made to her life. The next morning brought silence from her end, which surprised me. I had expected anger, pleading, or at least some acknowledgement of the financial earthquake I had triggered in her life. Instead, there was nothing. I went to work, attended meetings, and tried to function normally while expecting my phone to explode with desperate messages. By afternoon, I was beginning to think she had found her new relationship not just romantically fulfilling, but also financially stable. Maybe her mysterious new partner could seamlessly replace the lifestyle I had provided. The thought stung, but I pushed it aside and focused on my work. Then, at exactly 4:17 p.m., my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. When I answered, a professional female voice introduced herself as an attorney representing my ex-girlfriend in what she called an urgent financial matter. The attorney explained that her client was facing immediate financial hardship due to my precipitous and potentially illegal cancellation of financial support. She suggested we meet to discuss a reasonable resolution that would restore the financial arrangements while my ex-girlfriend transitioned to independence. I listened to this surreal conversation with growing amazement. Less than 24 hours after being discarded like yesterday's newspaper, I was being asked to continue funding the lifestyle of someone who wanted nothing to do with me. The lawyer spoke as if my financial support was some kind of legal obligation rather than a voluntary expression of love and commitment. I told the attorney I would need time to consider the request and would respond through my own legal counsel. The conversation ended with her emphasizing the urgent nature of the situation and requesting a response within 48 hours. After hanging up, I sat in my office trying to process what had just happened. The woman who had coldly dismissed me was now scrambling to restore the financial benefits of our relationship while maintaining her freedom to pursue someone else. The audacity was breathtaking. That evening, I called my cousin who worked as a family law attorney. After explaining the situation, he laughed so hard I thought he might choke on his coffee. He assured me that no legal obligation existed to continue supporting an ex-girlfriend who had voluntarily ended the relationship. In fact, he suggested that any attempt to claim such support could backfire spectacularly if they tried to pursue legal action. Armed with this knowledge, I crafted my response to her attorney. I kept it simple and professional. I explained that all financial arrangements had been voluntary expressions of affection within a committed relationship. Since that relationship had been unilaterally terminated, all associated voluntary financial arrangements were naturally concluded as well. I attached a detailed breakdown of every payment I had made over 3 years, totaling an amount that shocked even me. Rent, car payments, credit card bills, vacations, shopping sprees, restaurant bills, and countless other expenses had added up to more than most people's annual salaries. I had been unknowingly funding a lifestyle that was completely dependent on my income. The response from her attorney came within hours, this time with a noticeably different tone. Instead of demands and threats, the message focused on negotiating a transition period that would allow her client to adjust to the changed circumstances. The urgency was still there, but the aggressive legal posturing had evaporated. Update 1. 3 days after the attorney's second contact, my ex-girlfriend herself finally reached out. She had somehow gotten a new phone number and called me directly, bypassing the lawyer entirely. Her voice was strained and desperate in a way I had never heard before. She explained that she was facing eviction within the week because the rent check had bounced. The car had been repossessed that morning when the missed payment triggered the automatic recovery clause. Her credit cards were maxed out and frozen. She was, in her words, completely financially destroyed. Then came the part that revealed everything I needed to know about the past 3 years. She admitted that this someone else she had found was not in a position to support her lifestyle. In fact, he was unemployed and had been staying at her apartment. She had believed she could maintain her standard of living through credit and temporary measures while pursuing this new relationship, never imagining I would completely cut off financial support. She asked if we could work out some kind of arrangement where I would continue helping her financially in exchange for an amicable separation. She painted it as a mature, civilized way to end things that would benefit both of us. I would get the satisfaction of being the bigger person, and she would get time to establish financial independence. I listened to this entire proposal with a mixture of disbelief and clarity. This person had spent 3 years taking my generosity for granted while apparently planning her exit strategy. The financial dependency hadn't been a natural evolution of our relationship. It had been a calculated arrangement that she had assumed would continue even after she discarded me emotionally. I told her that her proposal was interesting, but that I needed time to think it through. I suggested she discuss any formal arrangements through her attorney, as legal counsel seemed appropriate given the complexity of the situation. Then I hung up and immediately blocked her new number. The truth was becoming crystal clear. I hadn't been her boyfriend for the past year. I had been her financier. The relationship I thought we were building had been a business arrangement disguised as love. She had maintained the pretense of romance while systematically building a lifestyle that was completely dependent on my income. Update 2. A week later, I received what would be the final communication from her legal team. The tone had shifted completely from demands to pleading. They were now asking for a transition stipend of just 3 months of support to allow their client to get back on her feet. The amount they suggested was roughly half of what I had been paying monthly, positioned as a reasonable compromise. The letter included a detailed breakdown of her monthly expenses and a timeline showing how she would achieve financial independence within 90 days. It read like a business proposal, which I suppose it was. They were essentially asking me to invest in my ex-girlfriend's post-breakup stability with no return except the knowledge that I had been generous in victory. By this time, I had done my own investigation into the situation. Through mutual friends and social media detective work, I had learned that her new relationship was with someone she had met at her gym. He was significantly younger, worked part-time as a personal trainer, and had been staying at the apartment I was paying for during the final month of our relationship. The timeline suggested that she had been conducting this relationship for at least 6 weeks before sending me the breakup text. She had been using my money to fund her transition to a new relationship, including dates and activities with her new partner in the apartment I was paying for. This revelation transformed my understanding of everything. The cold, abrupt breakup hadn't been impulsive, it had been planned. She had established her new relationship, tested its potential, and then disposed of me when she thought she no longer needed financial support. The only miscalculation had been assuming her new partner could replace my financial contributions. I responded to her attorney with a detailed letter of my own. I declined any transition support and included a comprehensive accounting of the financial relationship over 3 years. The numbers were staggering, and I concluded by noting that she had already received the equivalent of 2 years' salary from me as voluntary support during our relationship. I also mentioned that my investigation had revealed the timeline of her new relationship and suggested that any claims of financial hardship should be weighed against her decision to conduct a 6-week affair while living on my financial support. I kept the tone professional, but the message was unmistakable. I knew exactly what had happened and when. Update 3. The final chapter of this situation unfolded 2 weeks later when I learned through our mutual friend network what had actually happened to my ex-girlfriend after the financial support ended. Unable to maintain the downtown apartment, she had moved back in with her parents in the suburbs. The repossessed car had been replaced with her father's old sedan. Her gym membership, designer clothes budget, and restaurant lifestyle had all disappeared overnight. Most tellingly, her new relationship had ended within days of her financial crisis becoming apparent. The young trainer had been attracted to the lifestyle she projected, not to her personally. When the luxury apartment, expensive dinners, and lavish lifestyle disappeared, so did he. She had traded a stable, loving relationship for a superficial attraction that evaporated the moment it became inconvenient. Our mutual friends reported that she had been reaching out to people in our social circle, trying to gather support for her version of events. She had been telling people that I had been financially abusive and controlling, and that cutting off support was my revenge for her finding happiness elsewhere. The narrative painted me as a vindictive ex who had used money to manipulate the relationship. However, her story had a significant flaw. Too many people had witnessed our relationship dynamic over 3 years. They had seen her casual attitude toward money, her expensive tastes, and her expectation that I would pay for everything. They had also seen my genuine affection and generosity, which made claims of financial abuse ring hollow. More importantly, several friends had noticed her behavior in the final months of our relationship. The secretive phone calls, the new interest in fitness activities I wasn't invited to join, and the gradual emotional distance that preceded the breakup text. Her affair wasn't the secret she had thought it was. The social fallout from her narrative campaign actually worked in my favor. People began sharing their observations about the relationship dynamics they had witnessed, creating a clearer picture of what had actually happened. Instead of garnering sympathy, her attempts to reframe the story only highlighted the calculated nature of her behavior. 6 months later, I ran into her at a coffee shop near my office. She looked different, still attractive, but without the polished appearance that expensive maintenance had provided. She approached me hesitantly and asked if we could talk. She told me she had learned a lot about herself and about relationships in the months since our breakup. She admitted that she had taken my generosity for granted and that her decision to pursue someone else while still in our relationship had been wrong. She said she understood why I had reacted the way I did and didn't blame me for cutting off financial support. Then she asked the question I had been expecting, whether there was any possibility of reconciliation. She explained that she had realized what we had was real and valuable, and that her pursuit of something else had been a mistake driven by fear of commitment and an attraction to excitement over stability. I listened to this carefully rehearsed speech with something approaching pity. This person had systematically betrayed my trust, attempted to manipulate me financially, and launched a character assassination campaign when manipulation failed. The idea that I would consider rebuilding a relationship with someone capable of such calculated deception was absurd. I told her that I appreciated her apology and was glad she had learned from the experience. But I explained that trust, once broken so thoroughly, couldn't be rebuilt. I wished her well in her future relationships and suggested she be more honest with the next person about her expectations and feelings. As I walked away from that coffee shop, I felt the final chapter of this experience closing. The woman I had loved for 3 years had never actually existed. She had been a performance designed to secure financial support while keeping options open for something better. The real person, the one who could conduct a calculated affair, attempt financial manipulation, and launch a smear campaign when caught, had been hidden behind a carefully maintained facade. The experience taught me valuable lessons about the difference between love and transactional relationships. Real love involves genuine emotional investment from both parties. It includes mutual support, shared goals, and honest communication about expectations and feelings. What I had experienced was a business arrangement disguised as romance, maintained through deception and manipulation. I had spent 3 years building what I thought was a partnership, while she had been running a long-term extraction operation. The cold efficiency with which she had attempted to maintain financial benefits while discarding emotional commitment revealed a level of calculated selfishness that still amazes me. In the end, my simple response of, "as you wish," had exposed the true nature of our entire relationship. By removing the financial foundation she had taken for granted, I had revealed that her commitment had always been conditional on continued monetary benefits. The desperate attempts to restore financial support through legal threats and manipulation confirmed that I had never been a partner. I had been a resource to be managed and exploited. The experience was painful but ultimately liberating. I learned to value my own worth beyond my ability to provide financial support. I discovered that true partnership requires genuine emotional investment from both parties, not just financial contribution from one. Most importantly, I learned that sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to walk away completely from someone who views your affection as a transaction rather than a gift. Looking back, I'm grateful for that brutal text message. It revealed the truth about someone I might have continued supporting for years while she maintained the facade of commitment. Sometimes the cruelest honesty is actually the greatest kindness, even when it doesn't feel that way at the time. If you like this story, please subscribe us.